Okay, so since it's 3 p.m. Singapore time already, let's go ahead and start this webinar. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Shihan from New Venture Corporation. We are the organizer of the webinar today. Welcome aboard. Solar power as one of the clean energy sources has become more and more penetrated into our lives over the past decades, especially for the industrial sector. And by bringing distributed solar energy into the industrial sector, it will not only save the electricity expenses, but also contribute to the sustainability target. So therefore, regarding to this market focus, during the webinar, speakers will give their opinions and interpretations on the topic of smart and eco-manufacturing, enhancing corporate sustainability and energy efficiency with the application of distributed solar in Vietnam. So now I would like to give a brief introduction and a big welcome to our speakers for today. Here we have the moderator, Mr. Dennis Lin. He's the director from YCP Solidians. And Dennis Lin has over 15 years of experience in research and advisory in the pharmaceutical, biotechnology, and energy industries across Asia, the Middle East, and North America. Dennis is the current chair of the Energy Committee of the American Chamber of Commerce, Vietnam, and has had direct roles in energy policy advocacy in various responses and calls for comment during the drafting of Power Development Plan 8. And next, we have Mr. Hong Li. Mr. Hong Li is the sales manager from Trina Solar Asia Pacific, and he's currently handling the sales manager in Vietnam at Trina Solar. He joined Trina in April 2021 and has been responsible for sales, technical support, and consultant for new products to Vietnam customers. And he has over 4 years of PV industry experiences and over 7 years of energy consultant experience before joining Trina Solar. And next, we have Ms. Soling William. Ms. Soling is the country head of LYS Energy Vietnam. She joined LYS Energy Group in 2020 to set up the Vietnamese branch and support the expansion of the company in the country. And LYS Energy Group is one of the leading Singapore homegrown solar independent power producer that builds, owns, and operates solar PV system for commercial, industrial, and public sites in the Asia Pacific region. Next, we have Mr. Hong Tran. Mr. Hong Tran is the project developer from Scatec Solar, and he joined Scatec ASA in February 20 with a portfolio of 3.5 gigawatts operating renewable assets and expanding. Han is responsible for identifying new business opportunities in Southeast Asia, focusing on primarily within the Vietnamese market. And as part of his remit, Han will conduct legal and risk assessments, manage community and stakeholders relations, and coordinate due diligence of projects, and will provide support at all stages of project development until commercial operation date. And last but not least, we have Mr. Nam Do. He's the Chief Technical Officer from SkyX Solar. Mr. Nam has over 12 years of experience in the power sectors, ranging from coal and gas-fired to renewable energy, such as biomass, hydro, wind, and solar. In the last 5 years, Nam has been working between Australia and Vietnam for many different projects, especially within the rooftop solar system in the CNI sector. And for today's webinar, we will first start with a 10 minutes plenary speech given by Mr. Hong Li from Trina Solar, followed by a 45 minutes panel discussion given by all of our speakers. And please note that there will be Vietnamese simultaneous interpretation for Mr. Hong Li's presentation, so please kindly switch your channel based on your language preference. And the organizer of today's webinar, New Venture Corporation, is dedicated to supporting key investors and developers for successful development and investment in Asia Pacific renewable energy sector. Our footprints cover Asia Pacific countries such as Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, China, Myanmar, Australia, Malaysia, Singapore, and some Middle East countries. One last thing before starting the webinar, I would like to introduce all attendees with some housekeeping notes. If you experience any technical issues or you have any questions for our speakers, please do feel free to use the below Q&A box. And also we will share the presentation slides along with the webinar recordings to all of you by next week through your registration email. So now let's go ahead and welcome Mr. Hong Li, the first speaker for today, to start his presentation. And I will go ahead and enable the language interpretation. So now you will be able to choose in between English and Vietnamese. Let's welcome Mr. Hong Li.
Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you everyone for the meeting today. To have the opportunity to introduce with you the China Vertex new model. Okay, I will present this now. As you know, China is founded in
Như mọi người đã biết, China được thành lập vào năm 1997.
It's almost around 25 years. So it's one of the oldest solar manufacturer in the world. So in 2020, we are listed in Shanghai Stock Market. For China, we are one of the global company. We have office and also have projects all around the world. Especially in Vietnam, we have 2 factories in Bắc Ninh and Bắc Giang province. China is one of the top of bankable in the Bloomberg list. So if you choose China, it's one of the good choice. For APAC area, we are on the top 3 for around 4 years in continuous. Okay, today I will focus on the new technology. As you know that normally we have 210 Vertex, we have N-Topcom, and we have GT is a kind of very big capacity PV model. So for the new trend of the technical on PV. So as you know that as before, for the long time, the capacity of each model very low. The increase is not too high. However, recently, the capacity of each model increased quite fast, from 450 up to 650 in 2 years. In the future, the PV model have more than 700 watt peak. As you know, normally the first technology have the range from 400 to the 650 watt peak. So why the capacity of each model increase quite fast like this? So you also see the market trends for the high capacity of PV model for 2020 is certainly for 41 gigawatts, but for this year estimate
Tăng
around
rất là nhanh trong những năm gần đây. Và dự kiến
be more capacity of high capacity of each model. So you also see in the China market have around 60% of manufacturer launching for the high capacity model power you see here. So for not too much company introduced to market with the capacity under 600. So for our Vertex China, we have a project all around the world with high capacity PV model, especially in Vietnam, we have solar farm, and also we have a floating solar to use new technology. For Vertex family, we have 5 model. So for this model, we use for low voltage, low current, it's around 11 ampere. For the 19, 20, and 25, we have a high current and low voltage design with the current around 70 ampere. So as you know why we divide like this, let's go for the detail or technical. you can see on the design of the PV model, you can see the BOS cost decrease based on the capacity of each string increase. So as you know that when the capacity of each string increase, so the BOS cost for DC side, for the structure or for anything else will be decreased. So if he can increase the PV string capacity, it will be best for the BOS cost. I take example for the kind of the rooftop project. This one example for the typical one, 1.2 megawatt DC and 1 megawatt AC. So you see, we can compare between 221 mm with capacity 540 watt, and also we use Vertex for 210 mm with 545 watt. Are you a 10 inverter? We will have around 50, 90 or 100 MPPT. So if we connect with the Vertex model, we can connect with the 6026 PV model. And with the previous model, we will just connect to 18 PV model. So with this one, we just need around 85 string. So it perfectly connect with 1 MPPT per 1 string with the available inverter. So with the, let's go to detail, it's more for the connection type. So with the string inverter available in the market now, example for Sungrow or with Huawei, with the 100 kilowatt. So we have the current of the MPPT around 26 ampere. So with 26 ampere, we can connect with the only one string with only one MPPT. So our high current is around 70 ampere. It's perfect connect with your one string with one MPPT. With the lower capacity of each string, we must connect 2 string per 1 MPPT. So with this one, we will limit it. The current of the each string is around 20 ampere. So this one is quite sensitive because in Vietnam, normally the radiation is more than 1,100 watt per square. So it's quite a sensitive value. So please check carefully if you use this connection. With the connection below, so we will use less number string, less cable. So we will have less string more than normally. So we will reduce the cost at around 0.6 watt dollar per watt. It will save the cost for the investor. So it's one of the good information for customer. And also, as you know that we connect 1 string per 1 MPPT, so we will reduce the loss mismatch between 2 strings. So this is kind of the advantage of technical. So for solar farm, it will be the same. You can see here project in German and project in Spain. So we have the column here is BOS, the CAPEX, the LCOE cost. So for the G12, it's mean 210 mm, and for the M10, it mean here the 182 mm. So you can see here with the higher capacity, we will have a low LCOE. It's the same with the fixed. With the higher capacity, we will have a lower LCOE cost. Example for compare between Vertex 670 watt compared with your 540 watt. So we will reduce about 50% of racking, 17% of foundation, 11% of cable, and 7% of installation. So it's quite a huge number. For the LCOE, we will say around 1.2%. It's quite a bigger volume. So for the Vertex 670 watt, we will have a high efficiency. It's 21.6%. So with the same design, low voltage concept design, to save the LCOE cost for customer, as I talked before. We also adapt with the IEC test for the loading. So please okay to use the bigger capacity, bigger PV model, because we already follow the IEC test for all requirement for PV model. So it's okay for the bigger.
Do vậy chúng ta có thể yên tâm.
For the packing, we have can have able to use conventional packing here, and also innovative packing here. With this one, we will have save more than 12% for customer on the capacity loading. So we save the cost on shipment for customer. As I talked before, most of the inverter now in the market, we will certify with the higher capacity big model, and also the design high current low voltage, as I talked before, with the connect 1 MBT with only one string. So it's not only safe for DC cost, and also it's safe for the mismatch cost between two strings. And also for the motor truck manufacturer, it also we are certified with the new higher capacity. You can see some picture project for small CNI we already done for you to make the recommendation. Okay, it's all my slide. Thank you, everyone. If you have any question, please connect me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hong Li, for your presentation. And now it's time to start the panel discussion for today. So we are glad to have Mr. Dennis Lin to be the moderator of this panel discussion. And for the panelists, we have Ms. Solin William, Mr. Nam Do, Mr. Han Tran, and Mr. Hong Li once again. So I will go ahead and hand the microphone to Dennis, and let's welcome.
Thank you, Shihan. And thanks everyone on the panel for joining us today, and thank you to the attendees for joining us for a really interesting discussion around the use of solar in manufacturing and the future of that technology in this industry. So yeah, why don't we go ahead? We've already introduced all the panelists, so I just want to jump right into. There were some questions that were forwarded to us when a lot of the attendees registered, and so we wanted to highlight a couple of those during the course of this panel, just to answer your questions and to highlight some of the work that all of our great panelists have done over the last couple of years in this industry. So we'll start off just by kind of moving generally on the application of solar in the industrial segment and future trend. So that was a question that came up in the registration process for some people. I pose this to the panel. What is the current condition of solar applications for industry in Vietnam, and what do you see as a future trend for it?
Hello. Is the question for me?
Yeah, sure. Hung, if you have an answer for that, please go ahead.
Okay. So currently, what we see with the industrial segment in terms of solar application is that there has been a lot of rooftop solar being added into a lot of the factories around, especially around the southern part of Vietnam, where the solar yield is is quite high, and there's an option to also connect to the grid to sell the extra exit capacity. There is also a number of factory also install their own biomass as well as the gas turbine for the production, as well as some of the on the meter on site, or you can call it a physical connection directly into the factory from the solar panel without the necessity to connect to the national grid. So there is a lot of solar application available around the factory. However, the total demand for the say RE 100 company, as well as a lot of company not part of RE 100, but also want to have renewable as a branding for their products, who also need to have solar installation or say direct PPA at some point. So some of those are also looking forward to join into the DPPA upcoming pilot DPPA program, which is roughly 1 GW AC in capacity. Yeah. If that's answered your question, Mr. Dennis.
Interesting points there around demand in industrial zones for solar rooftop, but also you were mentioning connections of these solar rooftop installations for the grid to sell the extra. But one of the things that we've seen a lot this year was around curtailment. Do you have any?
I'm sorry, Mr. Dennis, your voice is quite low at the moment. I cannot hear most of the question.
So I was saying that you mentioned a little bit around the connection of the solar installations to the grid. Can you hear me better? Yeah, so
Yep.
In connection of the solar installations to the grid to sell the extra, one of the problems we've seen a lot here in Vietnam is around curtailment. Do you have any comments around that as an issue, rather than just selling the extra?
I see. So the issue with the curtailment is that there was roughly 8 gigawatts peak of technically they call it rooftop solar, but I would say up to around 60% of those are not really rooftop solar. They are more like people who buy the farmland and then install, just try to play around with the rules and then install technically they call it a rooftop solar to sell to EVN as a very high price compared to the regular utility scale solar. So those people are heavily impacted by the curtailment. EVN do even come out to have more rules, such as those farm would need at least 50 to 60% of their own consumption to be in order to sell the rest of the energy to the grid. So I would say that the rooftops is for the most of the factory do not have such impact, and the factory often located in a much more concentrated population where there is a lot of real-time demand around, and they use most of the energy internally anyway. So the amount of energy that they sell out to the grid is relatively small, and those will be allowed by EVN to acquire.
Yeah. I think what you were referring to was I think agri-solar was one of the terms that I heard, which was the installation. Yeah, you were saying on farmland and on kind of arbitrary places to kind of capture the feed-in tariff from the year before. So yeah, you brought some interesting points around the usage of it in industry. I guess to tie into that, we want to talk about for commercial properties, which I assume a number of the attendees here are also probably a little bit more in tune with. And so I want to understand the panel's opinions on applications of smart technology and energy efficient technology in commercial properties here in Vietnam.
Is that question for the next person, Dennis?
Yeah, this is for Huang, I think.
Okay, sorry, Dennis, your voice is quite small. Can you closer to the mic?
I asked what are the applications for smart technology and energy efficiency technology in commercial properties.
Okay. So can I share my screen again? Let me share. Have you seen my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. As you know before, the generation located in the farm compared with your load. So the transmission line is take long, but now it's different. What is different? Different now is the solar rooftop appear next to the load. And also the direction of the transmission line just not only one way, like this. It also have a two way, this one, and also this side. So you know now the grid now complex now. It's not quite as simple as before. So for this one, we need kind of the complex smart grid also. So also, as you know, the profile of the load is changing, and now we have sources, power sources near to the load and belong to the customer. So we need to have a kind of the smart grid solution to optimize for the power using and the kind of the parameter for the price, for the hour, for the sources. So if we need to have an optimized solution, we need to have a kind of a new application for smart grid. So it's quite will be open for the new application for the energy market. So as you know that some company already approached this application to offer for customer how to optimize for the energy consumption and also for the generation, as I mentioned here. So I think it's quite a new market for all players to join together for the changing of energy market now. Okay.
Thanks, Huang. I mean, in terms of, you mentioned there smart technology and grid management technology. How far along do you think it is before we here in Vietnam adopt this kind of technology? And what's your opinion on adoption in Vietnam?
Okay. So as you know, the renewable in Vietnam is quite recently. So it's increased quite fast because the price of renewable is very low compared with traditional energy. And
right.
Also, as you know that Vietnamese government also open for renewable, and also we have now have a kind of the charging for the electrical car or something like that. So for this one will be kind of the new market in Vietnam, and also with the very crowded, there are many people with economic increase quite fast in Vietnam. So it's very potential for the many players to play together. For the exactly the changing of technical, so maybe it's quite new. I don't have the full picture. However, it's a new market for all everyone to play together.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's a good point, which is that it's also a still developing industry and a developing sector, and so it's definitely an opportunity for a lot of different players to participate. Which brings up another good question, which is the idea of concerns or maybe barriers for industrial clients. What do you think are the main concerns for industry, like factory owners, industrial clients, that might be holding them back on their decision to use rooftop solar or solar energy? Again, this is open to the panel.
As you know, that the example for the FDA company, they try to focus on natural carbon in global, not only in Vietnam. So also, as I mentioned about the traditional energy price will increase day by day, year by year. Example, cost, oil increased price recently, and also the renewable and also the battery application will be decreased in price year by year. So this application will be the trend in the future. However, as I mentioned above, that the application is quite new. So the company don't have too much kind of the long experience on the new application. So it will open for the new player for this one. So I think example for application to manage the power using in your factory, exactly don't have too much company integrated with renewable now. And also they don't have application to integrate with their battery application for the factory, especially in Vietnam, in global.
Celine, do you have any input on the challenges that would face an industrial plant for the application of solar in Vietnam?
Okay, so for the industry factory and that, yeah.
Sorry, I was asking Celine. Thanks, Huang.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Huang. Yeah, I can take over from here. In my opinion, there are not that many barriers in Vietnam for industrial customers to adopt solar energy. It's quite straightforward in terms of technology, even if indeed, as mentioned by Mr. Huang, it's quite new, it's new technology. So for the customer, it's not necessarily always easy to understand. That could be a barrier. But I think it's the most simple technology when it comes to renewables, if you compare to the complexity of wind power, for instance. And there is no risk of scarcity of the resource if you compare to biomass. So I would say and it's also the most cost-efficient solution, and it's pretty fast to develop and install. And well, at least until last year, the government has heavily incentivized the solar industry in the country. Though there are still indeed a few barriers, I would say some customers have concern related to long-term commitments. Most solar developers are going to request the signature of a contract from, let's say, very minimum 10 years up to 25 years sometime. For companies that may not have a vision of their activity in the country for the next 20 years, that could be a turn-off. This year, especially, there is a new challenge related to the absence of policy and possibility to sell the excess of energy produced to the grid. So self-consumption model is the norm now this year and next. And most solar developers are asking their customer to commit on a minimum purchase in terms of kilowatt hour produced by the system. So that could also be a turn back if you don't have a clear vision of your consumption in the coming year, a clear vision of your load profile, and so on. Well, I would like also to mention that some areas are quite typhoon prone. So that is also complicated for factories located in industrial area that are sensitive to typhoon to invest in solar in terms of safety. Last but not least, for no industrial customers still enjoy one of the most attractive electricity tariff in Southeast Asia. And there is no carbon tax yet in Vietnam. So why adopting solar if the situation right now is still economically quite comfortable? Even though I think we're coming there, I've heard that there is a law on environmental protection that have been revised recently and that will take effect in January next year to legalize the carbon pricing in form of kind of emission trading scheme for greenhouse gases. So it's a first step. There is also the European Parliament talking about a carbon tax on importation of products coming from countries that have not reached or that have not enough ambitious target related to climate change. And apparently Vietnam is on the list. So that could also be an incentive for factories to decarbonize and to adopt solar.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think one of the early points you made, the idea that, I think previously people were very worried about the idea of intermittency and being just able to have a constant source of electricity when it was dealing with renewables. And now you have these ideas of tying in different technologies together. Say biomass you were mentioning, along with solar is one way to curb some of that. But it seems more of the issue we're having lately is overproduction and not enough demand to capture all of that production when it comes to the amounts of solar that we have, at least for now. That brings up another topic of I guess, you mentioned it at the end there around sustainability and energy efficiency for factory owners, and that being a draw, like one of the reasons for factory owners to look into using solar. And Nam, we haven't heard from you yet. Do you have any opinions about the utilization of solar for sustainability and energy efficiency in a factory setting?
Hey guy, I would like to go back a little bit. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to go back a little bit with Salim about the long-term commitment. So I guess that like at the SkyAct we are acting as a investor. We are looking for the partnership with the factory, with the business owner for 15, 20 years. And I guess that like coming from when we have a lot of a discussion with those business owner, and I have to say that like a lot of them is concerned about the long-term commitment, especially go through the COVID. You don't know that maybe like in the 10-year time there's another COVID happening. So so a lot of the uncertainties around our time at the moment. However, as being the investor, we always come and then talk to the business owner and we want to take the risk, right? We're not taking the risk by ourselves, but we're here to helping with the business owner to understand the risk, and then from there we're sharing the risk together by investing into the rooftop solar on their roof and then selling at a discount price. It's a win-win scenario, and we understand the long-term commitment. So we need to be flexible in terms of the contract. Sometimes like we can contributing together, and then from 20 years it could become like 10 years, or it could become like the 15 years. And I have to say one thing is the awareness. Solar is been developing really fast, and we don't like around the globe. We see like all the government, all the policy, and everyone try to catching up with the technology. So we don't have the clear guideline. We don't have the clear policy to come out fast enough to adopt with the new technology. So solar is gonna become like sort of, in my opinion, a self-regulated industry. Why I'm saying like that is because we are doing the solar, right? We have the data behind it. We know what is the best for the system, how we operating and installing of the solar, and because we are the long-term commitment, so we need to be clear with the business owner, like provide them a good router solution In term to answer your question about to enhance the sustainability and energy efficiency, we saw the opportunity with the solar rooftop. Solar rooftop is the first step for us to become understand the power behavior, the power usage behavior, by install the solar in there, so we can monitoring like how what is the load of the factory at a different time, and then from there we can provide not only like the free power from the sun, but later on after we have enough of the data, we can come and then talk to them. Hey, there's a couple of the options where we can improve the efficiency of the plant. For example, like shifting the load from the peak time to early in the morning, or maybe like during the lunchtime. When we approaching couple of the client, we found out that like the amount of the money they pay for the electrical bill during the peak time sometimes equivalent to the money they pay during the normal time. You know that like on the peak time there's only 5 hours, 6 hours, right? Compared to the normal time is a 13 hour. So the money the money when we're showing to the business owner, say like, hey, the amount of the money you pay for the peak time is really high. We need to shifting, and then they realize about that. So a lot of the people, they don't understand the power, how they've been using it, and I guess that as being the investor, we're here to be helped with everyone. And what is one that is one of the solution that we offer to our customer, like to helping them understand their behavior, and then provide them a recommendation, the suggestion. For now, it's a rooftop, but in the future, it can be the battery, or in the future, it can become the microgrid, or sharing the load between the factory with the industrial park.
So, I mean, the point you're making here is a good one, which is that the usage of solar, along with the technologies we have currently, helps them better manage their usage, but also helps better manage, them shifting their load to be more efficient, both from a financial perspective from that factory, but also it helps with the overall grid load itself, in shifting parts of the grid away from peak when they're using the energy when they need it. So that's a good point, and I also appreciate the point that you're making about the issues around these long-term commitment type of contracts. You see that kind of built into a lot of energy projects, and that's kind of I think the backbone of a lot of energy projects are these kind of long-term commitments. This is a question I pose for the whole panel. Do any of you have an opinion on that changing based on the dynamics currently of Vietnam? I know you were saying earlier that it's been a policy light year. There hasn't been a lot of policy in renewables, especially because of the public health situation. But does anyone on the panel have an idea or any opinion about how that is going to necessarily happen in terms of, I guess, PPAs? I know DPPA it's been coming up, and it's been always coming up. But what does anyone have an opinion on how PPAs and how power purchase agreements will work in at least the near future?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, all right. So, all right. I have to say that I personally, myself and the team at the Sky, we are exciting to know that the PPA is gonna become like the near future here in Vietnam. Like we got the team with the experience from Europe. We got the team, myself, experience in Australia and then in the Southeast Asia. The DPPA is going to be open like it will offer like much option for the people to select and then ensure that they have like the good supply of the power at the reasonable cost. However, I think that like we can't, being the human being, we can't rely on the policy itself. You know, everything we do it here is for the goodwill of the future. We are the part of the puzzle for the climate change, right? That need to be come from the inside rather than come from the top-down policy. So we found out that most of our clients, why they want to doing with the solar, because they want to contributing into it. They want to be part of the team to reduce the global warming, and the DPPA is offer the good solution, but it is like a year ahead, right? When the policy is not really clear at the moment, we always come and talking to our customer that, hey, right now we can doing the rooftop solar, or we can doing this. In the meantime, Skyac is also looking offer. We also offer to our client that the DPPA as well, but it's gonna be happen like in the state.
Celine, are you of the same camp that altruism will drive policy, or how do you feel about this?
Well, like everybody, I don't have a crystal ball. I've seen a lot of circulars, drafts coming out last year, this year. What I believe is that the latest draft of the PDP 8 hasn't changed much. There is still only an allocation of 20 gigawatt peak for solar, including rooftop. We are, I believe, at 16.5 gigawatt peak around commission. So it would be great indeed to have a clear policy on how to, roll out and develop the portfolio, the solar portfolio of the country, but with a target of 4 gigawatt peak in the coming 9 years. There's going to be not that many opportunities unless we are allowed to exceed the target. A lot of programs such as the DPPA and the not FIT 3, because there won't be a FIT 3 for solar rooftop, but at least some policy allowing to some extent a connection to the grid and sale of the excess energy produced, because some factories are not open on Sundays. So it kind of deprived the opportunity to go solar for a lot of factories. Those policies are under preparation. They were supposed to be released this year. The DPPA has been under preparation since 2017. So I think next year is going to be the year. But first we need to see the release of the PDP 8 to see what is possible to do in terms of rolling out more gigawatt of solar rooftop and solar farms.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a year late, so. But I mean, it also goes back to the same point that Nam made earlier, which was that a lot of the times policy moves a lot slower than in reality, and this is one of those cases where the policy, in its initial form, drove the market so quickly that the policy just couldn't catch up. So yeah. That said, actually, that brings up there was a question around the RE100 program. I know you had dibs on that, Celine. So do you want to make any comments about the current status of the RE100 program?
Sure. So first of all, I can give a bit of background on the RE100 initiative. So this initiative was launched in 2014 in New York, which explains why most of the members have their headquarters based in the US as well as in Europe. However, we can see that in 2020, 42% of the new members were located in Asia Pacific. So it's a great shift, actually. To join this program, company have to commit to achieve zero carbon electricity grid across their global operation. So it's not actually zero carbon commitment. It's a zero carbon commitment within your electricity consumption, which can represent 50 to 100% of the CO2 emission, depending on the business of the factory or the commercial customer. So the people, the companies, the members of RE100, they are allowed to source this renewable energy from the market, or they can also self-produce on their premises. They can use biomass, geothermal, solar, hydro, wind. It's pretty open, any type of renewable. And there are actually 53 members so far who have announced using now 100% of renewable electricity, which is a great achievement. I forgot to mention that purchasing of REC can be used, so that helps for a country where policy do not necessarily allow solarization or direct PPA and indirect PPA. And nearly 60 of the RE100 members, they do produce renewable electricity energy on site, and a overwhelming majority are saying that this electricity comes from solar resource. So it's a great opportunity of growth for a company like this energy. If we want to narrow down a bit to Vietnam, RE100 platform report, unfortunately, zero headquarter of RE100 member located in Vietnam, but 38 members have offices and factories in the country, and they report about 6% of use of renewable energy sources, which is to take with cautious, because those figures were published in 2019 before the boom of rooftop solar in Vietnam. So I'm quite actually interested to see the new figures coming out at the end of the year to see how the boom of solar will have participate in increasing that percentage.
Right.
And anyway, throughout our prospective activity, throughout tenders organized, not to name them, by a very big brand related to garment, footwear, sportwear, F&B companies last year, we understand that there will be, and all of them, of course, are RE100 member, there will be a huge impact of the program to support the CO2, to reduce the CO2 emission of the industrial zone in the country. So let's see in the end of the year what comes out from that report.
Nam, I saw you raised your hand. Did you have a comment?
Yes, I do have a comment for the previous question, but I also would like to add up with the RE100 program. So I think that like we shouldn't only focus into the RE100 program, but we also need to look that into the bigger picture. For example, like the COP26 gonna happen next week. I believe that the owner of the head person of each country gonna to be talking about their policy to support with the renewable energy, and I believe that Vietnam it's gonna to be have like a few headline there regarding about the roadmap, how we can contributing into the 2050 target, and you know, it's like I always say that to everyone, you know, like one tree is not gonna become the forest. So we need to be 1,000. We need like 10,000 trees to be make a forest. And you know, like we don't, like those 100 companies in the RE100 is a good program, but I hope that like all of the business all out there, you know, gonna be looked at into that program and then, you know, contributing together. And as an investor, we are here to offer them like the best solution in the market to tackle the problem.
Sorry, I forgot to mention that the number of members has been consistently growing. So it's called RE100, but no, there are more than 300 members in that group.
In that group,
yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully the trees are becoming forests.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I would like to raise is, you know, a lot of the we are seeing like 2021 sort of like a little bit quiet in terms of like the solar rooftop because the effect from the COVID, a lot of the factory had to reduce their production. And then the policy, the Fit 3 supposed to be coming, but didn't come out until, I guess that until earlier next year. But a lot of the people have been waiting for the PDPA. But I want to emphasize one thing. The PDPA come out and then it's gonna be reviewed year by year, right? Like we show that with the PDP number 7. It's been reviewed for like maybe 4 times. So I am expecting with the demand to go green, demand to being the sustainable, the 4 gigawatt limit within the PDP gonna become like, I hope that's gonna become like 10, and then it's gonna become like 20 and 50. Who knows, right? And we have to say that like the new trend in the world now is all of the coal-fired power station gonna be shut down. A lot of them is getting into the 30 year. It get to the end of the life. So and a lot of the institutional financier they're not gonna be back up for the coal-fired power plant. So we have to work together, find affordable alternative solution where we can give it to our customer at the affordable price. Yeah.
Actually, the point about coal that you made there, according to PDPA, it's not supposed to go down. It's supposed to actually the total amount is supposed to continue going up. So
yes,
they're not going
right,
anywhere. They're not going anywhere. We're running out of time. So in the last couple of minutes, I just want to get everyone on the panel's perspective on, I guess, the future of small scale rooftop solar, applications of rooftop solar for industry. What's your perspective? What's your prediction for the market? In an answer in a minute and a half for each. So Huang, why don't we start with you?
Okay, for the practice for the strategy in Vietnam now is quite difficult, as you know before. However, as we discussed about like Vietnam, we need to contribute. Everyone need to contribute on the renewable energy. So I think it's for the long future it's okay. For the short term in Vietnam, it's quite challenging because after 2 year bombing. It's not because of the government, it's because 2 year bombing on the renewable market share is too high now. So maybe we need to dumping time. Okay.
Thanks for that perspective. Hung, why don't we hear your opinions on the future of solar, small scale rooftop solar?
Yep. So I think solar development in Vietnam is heavily depending on the DPPA and not the auction, simply because we all now know that within the high level internal circle in the government as well as MOT and EVN is there is not a lot of appetite, at least for the short to medium future, to procure more solar. So solar has to be relying on the DPPA or basically the on the meters type of investment. I think there are 3 key drivers for DPPA for solar to be advanced. The first driver is the progress on the EVN restructuring, as well as the opening of the REC trading. The second driver is the grid improvement, which is to allow those solar projects to be able to add it more into the grid. And the third is the shortage of supply of the other type of energy, including coal and gas, which is having record high input price recently, as well as the limitation of the further addition of hydro energy. Biomass is not going to work in Vietnam in a large scale. So I think we have to also look at the different source of supply in the market to see how the government would try to replace the limited supply of the other type of energy, and they would potentially add wind and solar into the mix, simply because wind and solar are a lot easier to deploy versus the big coal and gas plant. Yeah.
Thanks for that perspective. I will go next to Solene because I know Anam will have a very optimistic perspective about the future. So I'll start first with Solene.
Okay, so I'm supposed to go with the negative approach, right? All right, well, I agree with Mr. Hung that at least for medium term, large-scale solar is probably not the type of project to focus on. It might be difficult unless you already tied with a large industrial client and the DPPA program. In that case, great. If not, the auction mechanism is still under discussion. So the future will heavily rely on the solar rooftop self-consumption model. If I'm allowed to be a bit optimistic, I hope that the limitation to 1.25 megawatt peak per connection point is going to be lifted. I heard eventually 6 megawatt peak max allowed per connection point. So that would really help to approach customer with very large electricity consumption that are, as of now, rather dragged towards the DPPA than solar rooftop options, because 1.25 megawatt peak is definitely not sufficient to cover their large consumption. Yeah, there will be less client leaning toward this self-consumption model because it's more complex. It takes also longer to negotiate and to put in place. And there will be also fewer solar developer capable of developing and building under such scheme. We've seen anyway that a lot of solar developers have consolidated their portfolio last year and started to sell this year. So on our side, Lease Energy is here to, let's say, develop at a steady pace, and we are here for the long term. We are indeed developing project and under the self-consumption model with a pipeline that we can finally start building starting from next month, now that the confinement has been lifted. So there is still large potential to tap into for solar developer, though the mechanism will definitely be focused on self-consumption, which is anyway good for the stability of the grid.
Yeah.
So
I wasn't too pessimistic, so
I tried. I tried, but it's also not in my.
Mr. Nam, why don't you close this out with the panel?
No, I have to absolutely agree with Solen about the restriction, and I hope that the 1.25 meg gonna to lift that up. As a Sky, we focus on the shell consumption customer, and I got a feeling I am the one very optimistic here in the panel. You know, we are looking to develop 100 or maybe 100 more plus within next 2 years with the rooftop solar. And I think that the market is after 2020, it's been filtered out a lot of half my investor, you know. So the market now is only got like the true investor, which we would love to return to the meaning of the rooftop solar into to selling the power at the cell consumption, using at the right spot. I think that the market will be booming again. It's not going to be booming crazy like 2020, which is good because we're going to have enough time to make the design, to install the system at the better quality. Another thing is we need to be focused in how we operating and maintain the system to support us in the 20 years. And then that's for us is really important. So I'm excited for the market. I think at the SKYX we offer like many different choice to our client, but we also offer a lot of the protection level to ensure that the system gonna be work properly, not gonna be ensure the quality of the power in terms of the EVN, and then with the business owner. We are thrilled. We are thrilled to be to go greener and then go bigger.
Yeah, I think just to close out, I think a couple of takeaways from this session for me was there's a lot of different technology to integrate into both the commercial and the industrial sector, and a lot of ways for people to not only in Mr. Nam's opinion save the planet and help with the environment, but also to really work on helping save money for some of these companies that are operating right now at an almost unknown based on the way that they use their energy and their electricity. But it's also, I think, a lot of the focus, I think, for the energy sector in the last year or so, especially because of a lot of the unknowns of policy, was pretty negative. And I think a lot of people were just saying, we grew too fast, but in some ways that was probably true. But I think what has happened here is that because we have such a big base now to work on, it's given us a lot of lessons to develop better technology and better ways to integrate a lot of these technologies into the grid and improve our grid. With that, I will turn my mic back over to Shihan, and thank you all of the panelists, Huang, Nam, Hong, and of course Louis. Thank you again so much for joining us on the panel today. It was an honor and a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for moderating the discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis, and big thanks to all speakers for joining today's webinar and share your valuable comments for this market. And special thanks to Dennis for moderating this panel. And we will share the recordings as well as the PowerPoint slides used of today's webinar to your registration email by the end of next week. And should you have any other questions, please do feel free to contact our team through the email address showing on the slides right now. And please also make sure to follow Solar Talks webinar on LinkedIn to get our first-hand webinar update information. And again, thanks for attending our webinar today, everyone, and we'll see you next time.